Hi, welcome to Parents Using Human Design. I'm Courtney, and this is
I'm Bryn, and we're just a couple of parents using human design to try and make our life easier. Yeah?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And today, this is our third episode, and today we are talking about our inner authority. And we want this to be high level, right? You don't need to know the nitty-gritty of all the things in your human design to use human design in parenting when you're parenting your kiddos. So this is going to be high level for your inner authority and kind of what we do with that. And we're going to have that conversation today. So Bryn's going to kind of take us off.
Thanks. Well, like you said, we're not really here to teach human design, but it is helpful and we kind of need some context. So our authority in human design is what we talk about our decision-making process. And I think as parents, it's really helpful to understand your innate intuitive decision-making process, your co-parent or partner's decision-making process, and your children and how they are designed to make decisions. Because, I think we touched on this before, Courtney. It's like we want to honor the way our kids are designed to show up in the world, and that includes making decisions, and we want to teach them early and allow them early on in their life to really foster this decision making process that is intuitive for them so that they can have that skill through their whole life. At the same time, you sometimes have to override as a parent, and so I think, as a mom myself, and I'm sure you'll agree, you can disagree if you want, but it's like this pressure to make all the right decisions for our kids throughout their whole lives. It's like there's a lot of pressure there. And so I think that there can be a little bit of validation and confidence and maybe some relief in understanding your own authority, your own decision making process, and then applying that in the day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the permission, right? We've talked about the permission that it gives us. And I agree with you. It's this pressure to make the right decision and do things the right way because we don't want to screw our kids up, or we don't want to, we don't want them to have to deal with reparenting themselves later in life, or, doing the therapizing and like all that stuff. And in reality, you said this, like I think the first or second episode of this isn't about not conditioning our kids, right? They're going to be conditioned regardless of what we do. It's when we can step into that inner knowing and that inner authority of how to make decisions, we can feel more confident with it. We aren't going to second guess ourselves as much anymore.
Yeah.
And back to the kids learning how to do this for themselves from an early age, like think about how much confidence and how they're going to move through life as they grow, right? And something that came up as you were talking for me, Bryn, was that I don't know if your parents did this. I think a lot of our generation, our parents did this where they say, "Well, I know what's best for you." And and we got distracted.
I know my light turned off. It's okay. I'm
Yeah,
gonna turn it
it's
off.
okay.
If you're not watching on video, then you won't notice. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's I'm the parent, and I said so.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
there's some component to that, right? Like we have to be able to make these parenting decisions and this we have to lead, right? But from the standpoint of listening to your kids' inner authority, because I don't think that we as a society give them as much credit as they deserve. They know a lot more than we do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I was thinking of that scene in the movie Matilda. Do you remember that movie? And
Yes, I love that movie.
he's like the dad's standing there, and he's like, I'm the parent, you're the child. I'm big, you're small. I'm smart, you're stupid. Right? It's like that talking down, but really, the truth is that children have so much wisdom.
It's
And
actually like not even the wisdom, right? It's like not even clouded by all the life experience. Like they have access to the wisdom too.
yeah, we've conditioned our society. We've been in this era of the cross of planning, right? This era of mind first and institutionalizing and structuring and formalizing. And, it's we as a society, I think safe to say around the world for most societies, at least developed nations, it's like we teach people to kind of think from the mind to use the ego mind, right? To use logic. And we're moving away from that in general. And even still, it's like the kids are coming, they're not taught that yet, right? They're not conditioned that way yet. So that's a big part of, you know, them, this wisdom, this like inner knowing, this kind of natural ability to go with their gut or to follow their intuition or to use their authority, because it is how they are wired. It's us as a society and as parents and family units that condition people out of it. And I think we're starting to become much more aware. I mean, the amount of brain space that I give to thinking about not traumatizing my kids in every moment, like, am I screwing them up? My daughter is so sweet. Recently I've been having this experience where, she's 5 and I'll get upset about something, right? And I'm still learning and unraveling my patterns from my childhood, good, bad, ugly. You're right. Like they're still being presented because my kids are small. I'm still having a lot of that handed to me, like spoon fed to me, in the most uncomfortable way. And she will have these moments after I kind of lose it, and she'll come and she'll be so sweet. Like, you're the best mommy. And I'm constantly like, I have screwed her up. Like, this is some sort of dysfunction, right? Like, cannot be right. Part of that's in her nature to be very, very nurturing. And of course I'm owning it and, apologizing and having conversation with my kids around, my self-awareness of, yeah, I lost it. And it's probably because of this. And here's what I need. And here's what you don't have to be responsible for, kind of a thing. But it's tricky. I know that's not totally related to decision-making processes.
No, but I think it's so important. That actually comes up a lot in my coaching calls of like moms who feel so bad and guilty when they lose it on their kids, and realizing that really the repair is the most important part, right?
Yeah.
My therapist told me a couple of years ago, the most, like, without getting into all my trauma, there's been a lot of trauma in my life. And she said something that was so powerful. And she said, it's not what happened to you, it's what happened after. How was it dealt with, right? Was it swept under the rug and ignored? Were you forced to not talk about it? Were you or were you held in that? And that's what forms how we cope with life, right? So as a parent, as a mom, as we're screwing up our kids, as we're losing it on them, the most important part is, what do we do right after that happens?
Yeah.
Right? Do we repair? Do we go talk to them? Do we have those conversations and help them understand that they're not doing anything wrong, and mommy's human too, and we make mistakes too, and we're deeply sorry for how we reacted, right?
That happens a lot in the car on the way to school. Sorry, I lost it because you guys can't get your shoes on.
Yes, it's a very stressful time. Love that.
So I think what we wanted to talk about today, or really touch on, is this idea of honoring your own decision-making process, allowing your children to really foster their innate decision-making process, and working with those two things in a parenting capacity where you have to, as a parent, sometimes, maybe often, override that decision-making process. So where can we find places to foster it and allow them to have the autonomy? And how can we have conversations with them at all different ages and stages around, well, I have to keep you safe. That's my job, right? And so this is the decision that we have to make. If you're fairly new to human design, if you are unclear about what your authority is, when you run a free human design chart, you will see in the list, it'll kind of give you a list. You'll see this, crazy body graph that looks like a bunch of chakras and numbers and boxes. And then usually you'll have kind of a section where it will tell you your type and your profile and so on. So what we're looking for is the inner authority. Not everyone has an inner authority, so we'll talk about that. But just to give a high level overview, a little bit of education, just so that we're all on the same page. There are really 7 different types of authority. We can kind of combine a few of those. So we'll do that for the sake of time today and just keeping it really simple. But your authority is your decision-making process. So half the population is going to have roughly half emotional authority. Then we're going to have sacral authority, we're going to have splenic authority. And then you might see it could be called a couple different things. So some chart reading services are going to say no inner authority, and some of them might have that labeled. So this would be a self-projected projector, an ego manifester. It could be a mental projector or a reflector. If you're a reflector, it's actually going to say lunar authority. Okay, so just to keep this super simple, if you have emotional authority, which again is going to be half the population, is kind of like the most common authority type. This is a emotional wave that you ride. So your decision-making process is actually kind of clouded by your emotions. You're not really designed to make spontaneous decisions. You may have, especially depending on different definition in your different centers. Like if you're, for example, if you're a generator or manifesting generator, you have a defined sacral. So you're going to have that gut knowing, but you are designed to sort of ride the emotional wave, feel all the feelings. It might be sleeping on it. It might take a week. It might take a few hours. It kind of just depends on the wave and the decision. The bigger the decision in general for all people, humans, the more you really want to practice using your authority. But with emotional authority, you're looking for the peace that comes after you feel all the feelings. So like if you're invited to a party and you're like, ooh, yeah, I want to go to that party. And then, 2 hours later, you're like, well, I'm actually kind of tired. I don't know if I want to go to the party. And then you start feeling guilty because you always tell people that you're going to go and then you don't go, but you don't follow through. So now you feel guilty, right? And then so you're going through all these emotions. And at the end, you're like, yeah, I'm going to go to the party, but I'm coming home by 10, right? So it brings us clarity and sometimes the nuance for how, yes, you knew from the get-go in that moment, maybe that you wanted to go to the party, but you had to wait for that emotional clarity to feel like, oh yes, but I want to come home early, or yeah, I'm going to go, but only if my, friend comes with me or something like that. So that's emotional authority.
Can I speak to
sacral authority? Oh, go ahead.
Do you mind if I speak to that really quick for just a minute? Because it takes up it's so much of the population. And there's so many people who aren't connected to their emotions, right? I think it's really important to note that in that you might not even know what emotions you're feeling. You might not even be able to feel them or to say them out loud and to actually put a name to them, but just know that you're riding a wave, and all the sensations that come up, the feelings, all the things that just happen when you're trying to make a decision, like that's normal for you as an emotional authority, is to like just ride that wave until you find that calm. Yeah.
There's so much I want to say about this, but it would be an entire episode just on defined emotions. If you have a defined emotional center, there is actually a greater likelihood that you can name your emotion and feel it. Now, listen, there's such a huge range of human experience and trauma and conditioning, and it's just life experience that goes into this, where you may have shut that down or you may have disassociated in some way. So certainly there's nothing prescriptive in the human design body graph. Like I can't say that you're going to experience things in one certain way, but it's like, one thing I will say is it's like the call is coming from inside the house. So when you have emotional authority, you have feelings and moods and emotions, and they are coming from you always. Okay. Yes, they may be influenced by external situations, but if you don't have this center defined, it's really interesting because you kind of operate on this like baseline emotional neutrality, but you can feel emotions bigger because you receive other people's emotions, you amplify them, and you reflect them back out. So it's really interesting. For people with emotional authority, again, it is beginning to notice what is that emotion, maybe naming it if that feels helpful. That's not going to be helpful for everyone. It's not necessary to name the emotion, but to just kind of notice, oh, I'm on this wave. This feels like a high. This feels like a low. I don't want to make an emotionally charged decision. Let me sleep on it. So let me sleep on it. Let me get back to you. Those are phrases that I always give to my emotional authorities to use in all parts of their lives, right? With kids as parents, one phrase that I heard recently was, ask me again when.
I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. And this is for all types, definitions, whatever. Ask me again when your room is clean, or, because our instinct is often to just say no, right? And if you have an undefined emotional center, by the way, again, we can make this whole episode about just this emotional center. Maybe we do one in the future. If you have it undefined, you might be feeling their emotions, right? And that might hit you in a certain way that it's just default, like no. Or if you have it defined and you're in a high or a low, you could be, really inclined to say, oh, yeah. Oh, that sounds so exciting. You want to sign up for, a year of gymnastics classes that is going to require a lot of your time, or soccer, right? Like traveling soccer, like you can be sort of inclined to answer in this high or in this low one way, but really honoring and making that decision from a place of peace and neutrality as much as possible is really going to serve a defined emotional center.
Yeah.
Emotional authority. Yeah. Also, then looking at for your children, when they have defined, or when they have an emotional authority, it's really helping them notice what feelings they're feeling and helping them notice how they change over the course of a day or a few days, and encouraging them to sleep on it, encouraging them to take some time before they make a decision. And again, the bigger the decision, the more important it is. You can't wait to decide what you're having for dinner until you find emotional neutrality.
Yeah, exactly.
Some things,
or you can't wait to decide what shirt you're going to wear to school because you need to go to school.
Yes. However, you can think about it the night before.
Yeah.
So we can start to maybe figure out within their schedule if that's a point of contention or disruption or challenge in the mornings, and they have emotional authority. We need to start maybe thinking, and some kids may benefit from a few days in a row, having it already planned out and kind of feeling into what they want to wear in advance. So it's not a game time decision where they're making an emotionally charged decision, and we're practicing that every day. It's sort of.
Yeah, I love that so much because that's something from a time management perspective, I think a lot of parents think about, right? Of let's figure out what you're going to wear tomorrow, or let's lay your clothes out for the week just to make it more efficient, but to look at it from that perspective of the emotional authority and giving them time to feel into it and know that if they change their mind, like letting them know and educating them, like you can change your mind. You can decide or start to think about it tonight and think you want to wear this thing. And when you wake up in the morning, you might feel different. And that's okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this narrative around like, oh, well, you made a choice and you have to stick with it, but really understand, right? That's like an outdated sort of mentality. So if you start to think about, well, I have an emotional authority child and they made this decision in a split second, it has to be okay to allow them to change their mind.
And that is such a hard thing, Bryn, in our world. Like we were talking about this with my daughter with going to soccer and like making this decision of what team to go to because she got offered two different teams. And it's like we ran into this problem with her the last season she played. She took last season off because she was kind of burned out and needed a break, which is totally fine. But the last season she played, it was like she wanted to play, right? She really wanted to play. And throughout the season, it kept coming of like, well, I don't want to. I don't feel like it. I don't want to go to practice, da 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 da. And it's like, how do you in our world make this commitment to be on a team for 10 months, literally 10 months of the year, and not quote unquote force her to finish out the season, right? We made a commitment. It's so hard in our world.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if we want to go down that rabbit hole today, but
or ever.
Yeah.
Not have to make these decisions.
Yes, let's not adult in that way today. Okay.
Yeah. It's Monday.
Yeah.
Too much for Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, it isn't. I mean, it's such a dance, and they call it the experiment, your human design experiment, for a reason. And there are other things in the chart that are going to play into this. So we were just talking before we started recording about, profile. And I was saying, oh, bless the 3 lines, right? And so for kids, if they have a 6 line in their profile or a 3 line or both potentially, right? It's like, you have to just try it before you know anyway. And so then if you have emotional authority, but then a 3 line in your profile, it's like you may be making the decision, but then you won't really have all the information that you need to know, right? Can I make a 10-month commitment? Well, I don't know until I get into practice and feel it out on the team and that sort of thing. And so you are doing that dance of like, okay, but if you change your mind, are we sticking this out and honoring the commitment, or are we honoring that, it wasn't the right choice? And how often do you do that? You can't just pay for 10 months of soccer as a parent and then drop off after 2. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was where my daughter's like so into gymnastics, watching it. And so she wanted to try, and they have, it's very much September to May that you commit to, even at 5 years old, which is a little bit bananas, but okay. It's the way that it is. And so this summer, it actually worked out. The timing worked out really well, because this summer they were running these 4-day camps. And so we're able to put her in the camp, and she can experience what's that like to be in that routine and be experiencing this. And she loved it. So we'll do another camp, and then we'll get a few under our belt before we make the decision. Now, my daughter's not emotional authority, so she kind of just knows in her gut. And we work on fostering that decision-making process from that gut reaction. And then also looking at our finances and looking at the time commitment, because it is oftentimes for younger kids, the most disruptive, inconvenient time.
Yes.
Always.
Yes, it is. Yep.
You're like 2:00 on Tuesday. Here's your class. I'm like, what?
How does that even work? What?
I don't know how people do. I mean, I know how I do it because I'm an entrepreneur, and I've also been working from home for way longer than most people have been working from home. And I just don't, it's like, I'm always like, how do people do this? Then I'm doing it. I don't know. You figure it out, I guess.
And I think it's funny that you say that. This is a total side tangent and totally off topic, but I think there's more people out there that have the flexibility than we realize. Like, of course, there's a lot of people that don't. But when you go to like Costco on a Thursday afternoon and there it is packed, and you're like, what is happening in our world? Like, why aren't people at work? And I felt that way for a long time, because as a nurse and doing shift work, you have 3 days on a week and you have all the rest of the time off, and you go somewhere in the middle of the day and you're like, don't people work?
Yeah, I know, I'm with you. I remember when I was still working in corporate and I didn't have kids and I was not married, and I lived at the beach and I played a lot of volleyball, and I would have people be like, hey, we have a women's group on Tuesday at 10 a.m. or something. And I'm like, who can play volleyball at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday? And I remember when I went remote, I was like, oh my gosh, me, I am the person that can play volleyball at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And it was so great. But, and then it changes with kids, where you have different routines.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And lifestyles and priorities and all the things. I don't play volleyball at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays currently.
Especially not in the mountains.
Yeah. Well, in the summertime, we do have, it's a big thing here.
Good.
I digress. Yeah. Anyway, we do have opportunities in the summertime more so. So that's emotional authority. Just kind of coming back to the purpose here.
Thanks for getting us back on track.
I'm always good for that. So it is interesting kind of navigating that with the and then the more you get into human design, then you start to learn like there are actually different kinds of waves, and the emotions move in a different way. And we're not going to get into that today, but if you are a little bit more well versed or advanced in human design, you might be looking at that as well to understand how it feels when you're in a high or a low, or what you're kind of like waiting for, what that piece feels like. But it certainly is a practice. And I would say with any authority, a lot of times, again, we've been conditioned out of using our innate, like natural decision-making process. And so a lot of times, and we're going to talk about sacral authority next, which is for our generators, only generators and manifesting generators who have this defined sacral center. If that's your authority, or even if you have emotional authority, but you're a generator type, it's like, we have done such a terrific, and in the true sense of the word, like a terrific job of teaching generators how to not follow their gut, right? It's also understanding if you're a generator and you have a child that's not a generator, a non-sacral child, they don't tell them go with your gut, doesn't mean anything. They're not going to get that. They just don't have that sensation in the body. So really kind of understanding the sacral works in a yes, no capacity. It is in the moment knowing, it is that gut feeling, and it is visceral. So when you have a sacral yes, you will physically be drawn towards something. And a sacral no is a physical, repelling. So this is kind of like, I don't, maybe not the best example, but it is so visceral. If you think about cigarettes, if you're a non-smoker and you're a sacral, that is you're gonna recoil, right? If you are a smoker, you're gonna be like, ooh, that sounds amazing. Chocolate maybe is another one, right? Like, ooh, yes, I want chocolate, or ooh, like that is not for me. And the sounds are gonna come up too. So if you have a sacral child, you're gonna notice at all ages that they're gonna have these guttural kind of sounds. We were talking about this. It was kind of funny. My son, he's a generator, a pure generator, meaning that he has sacral authority, and he's very like he's almost 2, and so he's so just it's just part of it, and I really foster it because my daughter, I didn't know human design when she was born. So having it this young, he does a lot of guttural sounds, and so when he likes something, he'll be like, yes, and he said it's so cute. I don't know what he was talking about, but the other night, I just have to share this because it was hilarious and terrifying. The other night I was put into bed and he just was amped up. He's going through a phase, it happens. And he just was not settling down, and he's laying on me and he's just kind of talking. And all of a sudden he sits up in the dark, like this close to my face. Right. And he just said, never again, never again. I laughed later. I laugh now. It was terrifying at the time because I'm like, what is happening? But I had to remember, like, he was just having whatever his thought process was going on inside. It was his gut response, and he was articulating it with those guttural sounds, which is so funny.
I'm so curious how you responded to that in the moment.
I froze for a beat. Because of my spiritual nature and understanding and believing, kids at that age can see things,
Absolutely,
right? And have experiences. And we have, some. My daughter was less so, and he's been a little bit more where I've kind of noticed some things that he's noticing. Anyway, and so there was that moment where I was like, is this him? What's going on?
Yes. Is something taken over him? Yeah.
Totally. But he was kind of laughing as he was saying it,
Okay.
and it's just very his personality. So then it was just kind of like, then I quickly moved into the irritation of like, to sleep.
Yeah.
Go to sleep. Never again am I going to sit here and listen to this, right? Like in that moment. But I had a good chuckle about it since. But it's again that gut response, and then it does come out, and the natural way it wants to come out is Yeah. That's sort of so it's and we, again, condition our generators out of that from a very early age. So we really, in our house, my husband is less on board. He doesn't understand. He's not really into human design. He doesn't get it. And that's fine. He doesn't have to, because it's not about understanding the system. It's about reinforcing like, hey, this is the way that he's communicating with us right now. Is his language developing? Can he say yes and no? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we don't need to be concerned about that. So if he wants to respond in that way, let's let him respond in that way. And to know in the moment. Now, my daughter is also a generator. One thing that's interesting, and this is throwing in a layer that's maybe a bit more advanced, but I'm just gonna throw it in there. She has a split. And so that's where she has certain centers defined, and they're not necessarily talking to each other. So she has like a couple down in her body and a couple up in her head, but they're not connected. And so it actually takes her, she knows in the moment, but I always forget I have single definition. All my stuff is talking, right? Like all my centers, there's inner communication happening. There's a small break. Well, she has a large split. There's a break in her centers talking to each other. So it just takes her a little bit more time to come up with the answer. So I often will expect, right? Because that's how I operate. That's how my husband operates. That's how my son operates. Yes, she has that knowing, but give it a minute. Sometimes it just takes a couple of minutes before she can put it all together within herself. So there are some other elements here. Just because I say you have sacral authority, in the moment, it's not like necessarily instant, right? Like, and this goes for the other, like splenic authority too. It's, in the moment, but it might not happen like instantaneously. Like give it a beat,
Yeah. What's coming up for me is like the ability to, despite what you know about human design at all, right? That ability to be present in the moment and just pay attention to what's happening, right? So for your daughter, who you ask a question and she's not able to respond right away, you notice in your body and in yourself that you're like, okay, let's hurry up. Like, what are you going to say? And you're also able noticing your inner self and what's going on there, but then noticing herself and like, okay, it's taking her a minute. Like, let's sit with this, or let's, do something else if she needs some time to process or whatever the case may be. Just being able to be in that present moment. It doesn't really matter what you know about human design. If you can make sense of it, of, oh, she's a split definition, or oh, she's a generator, or oh, whatever. You don't have to be able to pull that information inward. It's helpful to know, right? That's why you're listening to this podcast. It can help you make sense of things. But in the moment, just being there,
Yeah.
paying attention to that. Yeah.
It's not easy, right? Easier said than done. Yeah. And I feel like this is really a recent, I don't know, remembrance or rediscovery for me. It's a recent awareness. Like I've always been, I get impatient, and it's kind of come to me more recently, maybe as we've had more of these conversations of like, oh yes, have the patience, give her the time. And as I've come in the moment, and it's not all moments, right? But as I ask her things and I do consciously think like, give her a second. She's not ignoring you. She's not ignoring you. Right. And
Ooh,
then she answers,
yeah.
and I might check in every now and again of, did you hear me? Because she's just like her dad. If the TV is on, or if there's something else, like she can't focus
Yeah,
on.
she's distracted. Yeah, totally.
I mean, come on. Right?
Yeah.
But it is this, having these conversations has helped to bring this back into focus.
Absolutely. And like you said, she's not ignoring me. And what came up in me in that is that that conditioning at some point in your life, right? There was a little girl that maybe was ignored. Your inner child was ignored at some point, and it's bringing up these emotions, even though you're not emotional, right? Like you're not an emotional authority. You don't make decisions that way, but you have these emotions that come up in these. Anyway, we could go on a total.
Yeah, no, for sure. But from
Yeah.
the lens of human design, I'm a projector. And so projectors can easily be overlooked if they're giving unsolicited advice or guidance, right? So with my kids, it's like, that's present. Is she just ignoring me because the invitation isn't there, right? Or is it just because she's 5?
Yeah, and she's distracted. Yeah, she's not.
Freaking 5, right?
Yeah.
Also, give her a minute. And as I've seen, not every time, but some of the time, just giving her the space, and then communication flows so much easier, because I'm like, she just needs a minute. Like, she knows she's still learning too. I mean, it is a remembering, it is natural, but it's also, again, us creating the space and being intentional about, let her connect in, let her see. There's a story I told my my audience a while ago, and it really seemed to resonate with the parents, and I got a lot of like, hey, you should teach some parenting stuff, and here we are. But it was at a Christmas party. We were having a holiday party at the nonprofit that I'm a co-founder in, and it's a thrift store. And so we did a big white elephant for all of our volunteers, and there was probably a good 40 people in the room, and she got to draw a number as well. And when she drew her number and it was her time to go, we got up to all the gifts, and everybody's watching, and she just froze. And it was like, I want you to pick a present, real quiet. And I could just sense her energy shrieking. She was just really contracting and losing confidence, because she just didn't know, it was too much pressure to put on her to make a decision in front of all these people and make it so quickly. And it was extremely uncomfortable for me. But again, being able to be present, not all the time, but in sometimes, I had the moment where I was like, what an opportunity to allow her to come into the power of her own decision-making process at 5 years old, right? Yeah. She may never remember this. I remember this for her. Maybe I'll tell her the story, but it's just anchoring in those moments. Everyone's looking. And so I just sat down on the floor with her and started asking yes, no questions. And I didn't care. These were all volunteers. We were having a good time. There was enough wine. People are fine. They can wait a minute. You know what I mean? She's a child. And this was a room full of mostly adults. And so I sat down on the floor with her, and I just started yes, no questioning to help her get back into her sacral response, right? Is there a wrapping that you really like? Do you think it would be fun to touch them? Do you want to feel them? Like, do you want to, right? Like we were kind of going through all the different things that could attract her. And in the end, she finally made a decision. She wanted the heaviest one. And it was hilarious. It was this blown glass decanter, totally not appropriate for a 5-year-old, whatever, right? She freaking loves that thing so much still to this day. I mean, it just sits, you know,
Yeah.
she can't play with it or anything.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what it's actually even for. It's just this jar, like a little stop. But she loved it so much because it was a sacral decision for her. It wasn't just like a harried, oh, I'll just get this one and then feeling disappointed. It was an intentional choice. And so I share that just to say, like, with the sacral decisions, it can take time, even for kids, to learn to kind of be in that. As an adult, oftentimes with the people that I'm coaching, it's so disconnected that we literally are working on, like, do you want tacos for dinner? Do you want lasagna for dinner? Do you want a salad for dinner? Yes or no, right? Like, kind of coming back in touch in these small, seemingly insignificant decisions to be able to feel what that feels like again. And then making decisions that are bigger and more important and have more impact from that place.
Absolutely. It's building that muscle of being able to make those little decisions. I love that you brought that up because people are so disconnected and there's nothing right or wrong or shameful or, any weirdness about that. It's just where we are and honoring where you're at and being able to titrate up so that you can get to this point of really fully embodying those decision-making processes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's also a distinction for generators too between when it is that sacral yes and then when it's like, oh, I should know in the moment. Here's the thing that came to my mind, right? Is that a mind decision or is that a body decision? So coming and bringing your awareness down into your pelvic bowl, into that sort of low gut region, and just having that moment of like just bringing your awareness to that part of your body can be so incredibly helpful. I mean, it's grounding for anyone, but especially for generators. And then noticing, is this a yes or is this a no?
So powerful.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on?
What do you think? Do you think we have time to do more? Or should
Well,
we make this like a 2-part thing? Or like a 3-part thing?
great question. I don't want to leave out anybody. So we can run through it and then we can just cut it if we want to make it 2 parts.
Okay.
Does that work? Do you have time now to record this?
Yeah, I have about 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's wrap it up that quick.
Okay.
So the next sort of big type that you're going to see of authority is splenic authority. And this is an intuition. And it's really interesting because it's kind of different for everyone how their intuition comes through. And so splenic authority is all about coming into maybe what you might more traditionally assign to the word intuition. So it's that inner knowing, and you don't really know how you know. It might not be a sensation where emotions, you're really feeling the emotions and the moods. Sacral, you're really feeling that gut reaction and being viscerally drawn or repelled. With splenic authority, it's more like that little voice or just that feeling. Or you think about the clairs, right? Like the clairsentience, the clairaudience, it's this in the body, it's that knowing, it's usually quiet. It is in the moment. Sometimes what I'll hear from splenic authorities is that they'll get it once and that intuitive hit and then never again. I've also heard it pings like a handful of times and then it stops. So it's sort of that, what is that inner ping for you? What is that, you might have it as you actually hear it. It might just be just that feeling. So it is different for everyone, but this is a deeply intuitive knowing in the more traditional sense of what we think about intuition.
Yeah, when you're talking about that, it's so interesting to me to listen to you because I feel like obviously being in an emotional and I'm not a sacral, but I have a defined sacral center, right? So like all 3 of these things that you're touching on, I feel like I resonate with. So I don't know if you can speak to that at all about like.
Well, yeah, you have all 3 of those defined.
Okay. Because I'm like, am I going crazy here?
No, I mean, they're all gonna, so, and
Yeah.
this is such a good point, because if you have your emotional center and your sacral center and your splenic center, you're going to have that. I mean, how wonderful, right? To have all these different ways that your intuition and your inner knowing shows up. So what I would say then is, it's like you listen to all of them, you take it all in, because again, you're going to have an emotional reaction, or wherever you are on your emotional wave about it, right? So you're going to have essentially emotional reaction to it. You're also going to have your sacral knowing, and then you're going to have your splenic knowing. So you're having this intuition. Splenic and sacral tend to be more in the moment, whereas what we're looking for is not just what is the emotion in the moment of making the decision, it's letting that ride and then finding peace around it. So you're going to probably feel like, yeah, like this felt like a yes for me. But a lot of times what you find is when you wait and you ride your emotional wave, there's nuance that comes out.
Totally.
Yes, and yes, but yes, if.
Yeah.
Right. I want it to be this certain way. And then so it's taking into account your intuition and taking into account the gut reaction, and then allowing that to be there while you feel all the feelings and sort of draw out the nuance and then land at the decision.
Yeah. So if that's you, if you're listening to this and you're resonating with these different things, it might be because that part of your design is defined, that center is defined for you, and then like that's okay. Yeah, there's no black and white, right or wrong, or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so yeah, the intuition comes in. Again, it's quiet, it's nuanced. I think a lot of times are conditioned out of it. So if that is your authority, if you are a splenic projector, you are probably highly aware of your intuition already, but whether or not you're allowing that to lead you, right? Are we in the mind place, or are we allowing that to be our primary decision-making process? That's really the question. And to what degree? And then how can we be moving more into following intuitive hits rather than logicking?
Yeah.
Make that word up.
Logic.
Logicking. Rationalizing, right? So, and that's just for projectors, the splenic authority. So again, you can have a defined splenic center and be another type, right? There's sort of an hierarchy there in terms of how we look at, not that one is better than another, but if you're defined emotional center, you're going to be emotional authority. If it's not defined and you have a defined sacral, you're sacral authority. If neither of those are defined, then you're splenic authority. So it kind of moves in that hierarchy. But you can certainly have all three or a couple of them and feel those sensations, have those knowings, use them to help guide you. But we want to ultimately make the decision based on our actual authority. And then from there, we have no inner authority, which would be someone who has ego authority, who has mental or environmental authority, or is a self-projected authority, which is a projector, self-projected projector. So those three mean that you don't have emotional center, sacral center, or the splenic center defined, which is beautiful for you. It's perfect for you. And it means that it's not necessarily an inner body knowing in the same way. It is that you need the decision, you have to talk it out. So you need it to come out of you and be reflected back to you through your environment. So if you have ego authority, you're looking for what is best for you. This is maybe considered selfish way of being, right? But not in a bad way. This is what's good for you is good for all. So you need to really be in tune with the things that you're saying around what's coming out of your mouth about, I really want it. Like if I had it my way, right? Those kinds of statements, you're really noticing those because you're going to have it come out. It's almost like, I can see it, it's like it comes out of your mouth and then you hear it. And you can't hear it in your head. Even if you think the same thing, it doesn't land the same way. You need it reflected back to you. G center is very similar. It's like, what feels like me? What is the most me decision that I can make that is most my identity and expression of just who I am at my core, because it's really about your core identity. And then if you're a mental projector, which is sometimes called environmental, so you might see that on your chart. This is, again, you're using your environment to articulate kind of what's coming out, and you're mentally processing in a verbal way, right? We'll just say verbally processing. And then it's getting reflected back to you. Environment is incredibly important because it's going to flavor, right, the reflection. So you need to be doing this in a place where you have either a neutral sounding board. Lately, as a mental projector myself, I use AI. We were just talking about that too, using AI as a reflection and sounding board. And I also use nature quite a bit, right? So verbally processing things while in nature. I take a lot of voice notes when I'm by myself, right? Or if my husband and I, for example, are working through something, I try to encourage us to go out and get out for a walk and talk about it when we're out in nature, because I can come from a clearer place. And then if you have no centers defined in your reflector, you have a lunar authority. I'm just going to roll that in because that's no inner authority as well. And so while all the other types are solar beings, reflectors are lunar beings. And so your decisions have a lot to do with your environment as well. It is huge. It is essential that you're in the right environment. Your decisions the way that you make decisions are going to mirror all the different authorities. At some point, it's just going to kind of be influenced about where you are in the moon cycles, or how the moon is cycling, where you are in your own cycles, and who you're with. So that's really important as well. For reflectors, it's said that you want to wait a full lunar cycle to make a decision. If it's a really big decision, wait 28 days, right? If you have the capacity. Most decisions in life, you don't have that much time, So it's really just noticing how you're feeling and what's coming up for you and what feels like the right decision in the time that you have to make that decision, and then kind of just feeling into which one feels correct for you at the end. It's hard to articulate. For reflectors are 1% of the entire human population. The percentage of reflectors who even know they're reflectors to be able to tell everyone else what it's like to be a reflector is even smaller. So we're all still learning. But it is a very unique process, and also very much tied to the moon cycles as well.
Do you ever look at different designs and different inner authorities or energy types and think like, well, I just imagine what it would be like to be that?
Grass is always greener, baby.
And I don't even know, like, for right now, absolutely, I've been grass is greener, right? But right now I'm feeling just this immense curiosity of like, what would that be like? Like, yeah, I don't know. That just came up strong for me. And
well, I think we have a lot of opportunity to do that when we have children and partners with different authorities and different decision-making processes. My husband's the only defined emotional center in our house.
Okay.
Right? And he's always like, you guys are so emotional. And I'm like, it's because of you,
Yeah, because you're feeling it 10 times more than he is. Yeah.
Exactly. Feeling it amplified. But it's funny because then we can laugh about it, but it also brings in this element of like, oh, okay, understanding, right? What that must be like to have just moods. I don't just have moods. If I need to cry about something, I'm either in a conversation or I'm listening to a song or I'm watching a movie to like get that going,
to feel within
the feelings. And it's not like I don't have feelings, but it's usually like what's going on that's putting this, not to not take personal responsibility by any means, right? Like my feelings are still my own and I'm still responsible for them. And it's helpful to start to see like, oh, okay, well, a splenic projector, like that's going to be so intuitive. There's not going to be a lot of logic to it. You know what I mean? Like you're just not, it helps you start to understand, and I think have compassion for the people who are closest to you, but for all of humanity, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I think is so cool about this, is just bringing a greater understanding so that you can have that compassion. I feel like us as human beings, most of us need something to grasp so that we can extend that love and compassion, right? Like we hear all the time, like be kind. You never know what people are going through. Yes, we get that, but like when you can actually try to understand what they're going through a little bit or how they're showing up a little bit, why they're showing up that way, I think it opens us up to that much more kindness and love and compassion for each other. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Lord knows, like in our homes, it's can be fully you. And so oftentimes they're bearing the brunt. My husband has said to me before, oh gosh, we were in a fight. And we were having an argument. He's like, I just wonder, like, would you treat like the gas station attendant this way? And I'm like, no, because I can't be myself with a gas station attendant. You know what I mean? Like, I can't feel, it's not safe to feel and have those big emotions. That's just kind of how we're taught, it's different. So the people that you're closest to see the full range of your human experience. And so, and vice versa, like the people that you're closest to, you see they're all of them, our children and our partners and co-parents, like you've seen it all, you see it all. And so it's having compassion for the people who we care the most about too. I mean, it starts there, right? Like that ripples out for sure. But coming to human design has been such a beautiful awakening too. I mean, I always feel like I've always been a compassionate person, and but it gives you this other element, this other layer of, they're probably a mani-gen. Like, why am I going to judge them for having their third, fourth, fifth career of their adulthood? Like, who cares?
Exactly.
Right? That could be absolutely correct for them. Who am I to judge?
Yeah. It does. It gives you that permission. I go back to that word of permission every time, is like, it gives you permission to not judge, right? It gives you that, like, okay, it's okay. Like, they're doing them, they're being them, and it doesn't matter. And again, the words, the lingo behind the human design concept doesn't necessarily, you don't need to have that behind you to have, just to have this greater am I making sense when I say that?
Yes.
Just hearing this information and being able to kind of embody it a little bit without really fully being able to name it even is just so powerful.
Yeah. They call it the science of differentiation. And I love that so much, partially because it like lends so much into my actual design, my incarnation cross, which is my purpose here. But it's just so beautiful to see, we are moving into a time collectively where we are all going to be embracing, like it or not, that what's good for the individual is actually what's best for the collective. And we've been upside down on that for a long time.
Yeah. I'm getting full body goosebumps when you saw it. So cool.
Well, that feels like a good place to leave this.
I totally agree. This was a good episode, and we don't know what our next topic is going to be. We're going to feel into that, and we hope that you'll join us, and we hope that you're enjoying these conversations. And if you have any questions, you want to reach out for whatever reason, we are here. Our inboxes are open. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Like, we'll have all that stuff.
We'll put the links in when we have them and we know what they are.
Yes. We're recording these and we haven't even actually like published anything yet, so we're still figuring it all out.
All the best podcasts I listen to, the early ones are always the fun. Totally. Like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where this is going. We're just playing with it. I'm leaning on Courtney's 3-line. We're just experimenting. Figuring it out as we go. So, okay. Well, thank you for sharing time and space with me today.
Same. Yeah. I feel like a genie. Okay. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll be back soon.
Bye for now.